Good morning and welcome. My name is Chris Shelton, and I'd like to thank you this morning for joining us with our Qigong Teacher Training webinar, learning how to stop treating disease and start curing chronic pain. So when we look at health, there's 5 different components of health. It's not just about your physical health or your mental emotional health, but there's 5 different aspects that creates an overall balanced human being. And part of that balance is having balance in different areas of your life. So when we look at health, it's not always just about what we're eating and how much we're sleeping, but also what's going on internally inside the body. And what I love about these Qigong practices is that they're such simple practices with profound results. And Qigong is the foundation which helped to transform my life and change my life, and has also helped to transform thousands of clients and patients that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years. So our goal here today is to enhance and to improve your awareness of what a healthy, fulfilled life should look like. What is that for you? And how can you be a change maker? How can you create change in the world? And how can you create positive change for yourself? So together, myself, as well as my wife, Chris Shelton, we have over 30 years of experience in the healing and fitness industry. Like I said a couple seconds ago, I have seen over, in the length of my career, I've seen thousands and thousands of clients from all walks of life. And what's interesting is that some people say to me, Chris, well, I'm over 60 now, or I'm over 50. Does that mean it's too late? I haven't even begun to start working on myself, or I haven't even begun to start working on my mental, emotional state. Is it ever too late? And my answer is no. I said, you know, like I tell people, is that just the mere intention for you to want to create change for yourself and for your community and improve your quality of life is something that's priceless. And sometimes we need a hand as to how do we get to that place of peace and health and vitality. And that's why I'm here today. This is why we're here today, to present this to you. And so before we get started, what I like to do is I like to start off with a center and balance meditation. This meditation I have on iTunes as well as Google Play and on YouTube. And the center and balance meditation is a mindfulness meditation. Now, the difference between Qigong, if you've never heard of the practice of Qigong, Qi is the life force energy that emanates through all living things, and Gong is the skill to help to harness this life force energy in order to improve, in this case, your overall well-being. So what I love about Qigong is that it's the foundation of Tai Chi. It's also the foundation of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. And all the practices, meditations, and moving practices that are taught are all meant to do something medicinally inside the body. Not one practice is just meant for relaxation. Every practice here is meant to create some kind of change. And in particular, this meditation here that I'm going to be walking you guys through is meant to, number one, to get you out of your body and back into your, or get you out of your body. I think that's part of our problem is too many people are out of our bodies and get stuck in our mind. No, what I meant to say is to get you out of your head and back into your body, as well as to get to know your body, because they say that a superior doctor is one that can prevent disease before disease sets in. So the whole idea is that you become so aware of your body that you're able to transform it and transform the process of disease just by knowing or feeling. And that happens from doing this type of meditation. So what I love about Qigong is that it has the component of mindfulness as well as an action component to it. So we are working with mindfulness, but also we're trying to do something to help to create change within the internal organs, emotionally, and on the cellular level. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and find yourself a comfortable place to sit or to stand. Some of the Qigong practices that we do are done from a standing position. And what I'd like us to do is find a quiet spot. So turn off your phone, close the door if you're in a bedroom or whatever, put the pets outside or put them into another room, and just give yourself a moment. We're going to spend about 10 minutes here walking through this meditation. And we're going to start off first by placing the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth behind the teeth, as if saying the letter N. The breath is long, steady, even, and deep into the lower abdomen. We're going to gently close our eyes, and as we inhale, we feel the abdomen expand. And as we exhale, we feel the abdomen contract. Starting first by focusing on the front of the body, starting at the forehead. Imagine warm oil that begins to melt down from the top of the forehead, enveloping the brow bone, temples, eyebrows, and eyes. The nose, the cheeks, the lips, inch by inch, cell by cell, tissue by tissue, into the chin and jaw structure, flowing down into the front of the neck and throat, enveloping now the shoulders, upper chest, biceps, the elbows, the forearms, the wrists, the palms of the hands, leading all the way out to the fingertips. Keeping the strong connection between heaven and earth, allow for this warm oil now to envelop the entire chest. You feel the flanks of the body, the ribs, the midsection, the abdomen, flowing and pouring through the waist, through the groin, through the thighs, the knees, feeling everything flowing through the shins, ankles, feet and toes, all connecting, and allow for this warm oil to flow down deep into the ground. And from there, feel the entire front of your body from head to toe. Feel the left and right sides of your body. Taking a mental note as to what you're experiencing, what you're feeling. And now from there, begin to melt down through the back of the body, starting at the crown point at the top of the head. Imagine this warm oil as it melts down through the scalp, touching every hair follicle, every cell, flowing and pouring behind the ears. You feel the base of the skull, the neck, the shoulders, triceps, the elbows, the back of the forearms, the wrists, the back of the hands, leading all the way out to the fingertips. From the base of the neck, this warm oil relaxes the upper shoulders and upper back, flowing through the flanks of the body, through the ribs, the mid-back, the low back, the waist, through the buttocks, hamstrings. You now feel the back of the knees, the calves, the ankles, the heels, and feet and toes. And just allow for this warm oil to flow down deep into the ground. And now just take a moment to feel behind you. Feel just as much in the back as you do in the front, to the left and to the right. Now connecting to what's going on inside of yourself. Imagine this white light or divine energy begins to penetrate through the crown point at the top of the head. You now visualize and see and feel what's happening inside of you, starting off with the brain. You feel and visualize the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the pineal gland, the space between the brain and the skull, behind the eyes, the nerves that connect from behind the eyes to the center of the brain, the base of the skull, all the blood vessels, veins, capillaries of the face, the jaw structure, teeth, the gums, tongue. Each vertebra now from the base of the skull down through the center of the neck and throat. Allow for this white light to penetrate into the arteries of the neck, the muscles, the air passageway, the center of the upper back, chest, and shoulders. You feel the fascia, the connective tissue, the center of the biceps, triceps, the elbows, the center of the forearms. You now visualize and feel all the small bones and ligaments of the wrists, hands, and fingers. This white light now touches every rib. Feel as the ribs wrap around to the spine on the back. You feel the spaces between the ribs. You feel the heart, the lungs, the liver and gallbladder on the right side of the body, the stomach and spleen on the left side, the intestines, the urinary bladder, the kidneys, the sacrum, bones of the hips, the muscles of the legs, the bones of the legs. Feel and visualize those, the center of the knees, the center of the shins and calves, ankles, feet and toes, all connecting, all flowing off deep into the ground. And just allow for this white light to flow down deep into the earth. And next, allow for your feet to melt into the floor, like you're standing on a sea of liquid energy that comes up about the height of the ankles. And as you inhale, you just feel your body. Feel everything internally. Feel everything externally. Feel the left and right sides. Just feel your body. Feel the energy. Feel your breath. And then from there, slowly coming back to the present, finishing with a practice I call pulling down the heavens 3 times. We're going to inhale, just allow for this white light to come in, penetrating through the tissues. Inhaling. Third and final pull, inhale. And exhale. Okay, so how do we feel? Just taking a few minutes, even in every morning when you wake up before you get out of bed, if you just took about 5 minutes just to take a mental note as to how your body's feeling, like scan your body, just like I talked you through in this meditation, and or you could go ahead and download the meditation that we have available on iTunes, and you'll be surprised as to how your day will change just if you take some time just to focus and acknowledge your body. I also recommend too, when you wake up in the morning, if you say 10 things that you're grateful for, and it can be the same thing every single day, but do a couple of these practices and you will change the whole entire outcome of your day. So the key to stop treating disease and stop treating and start curing diseases and chronic pain, it started with myself, and I started with this over 26 years ago. And what we did was we went ahead and we shot a short documentary about who I am, or at least a story about who I was or who I think I am. We all of us have a story. And it's not that I hold on to the story, but it kind of gives you an idea of the chronic pain and the chronic illness that I suffered with, as well as some of the emotional problems that I suffered with, until stumbling across Qigong. And this is a short documentary of how I got to where I am today. And let me tell you, I'm so grateful to be able to present and to be able to work with so many people walking from all ranges of life, being able to be witness to their transformation and change. So this is about a 4-minute video, and we're going to go ahead and get started here and just find a comfortable space to allow yourself to enjoy, and I'll be back with you in a little bit over 4 minutes.
When we break down the word Qigong, Qi is the life force energy that emanates through all living things, and Gong is a skill in which to harness this life force energy, and in this case, in order to improve your overall physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. I did a lot of crystal meth in the day, and by the time I was 17, I had my first heart attack from a meth overdose, and put myself into Taekwondo as a means to change my path, because I realized I was going to end up dead or in prison or both. I started competing right away with Taekwondo. I did my first competition when I got my yellow belt, And anyways, one night before a match, I was kicked in the back, which then dropped me to the ground. And doctor said, "Chris, you might be, if you're not careful, you might not ever walk again." My mom was a nurse, and she worked for this amazing chiropractor who father, grandfather, brother, sister were all chiropractors, but also she had studied Chinese medicine and homeopathy, and she had a massage therapist working for her at the time, and they wheeled me in there. And he was a martial artist, and he started talking to me about Qi. Well, now I'm 18 years old, and I'm like, yeah, right. So anyways, I had other health problems too. I had severe sinus problems, digestive problems. I had a slight case of OCD, and I had nothing to lose. I started taking these classes, and back then, this was over 25 years ago, nobody was practicing Qigong, or very few people were practicing Qigong in the United States. And I kid you not, after about 6 months of doing these practices every single day, you just wake up one day and you're like, wow, when did I stop living on the Sudafed and the Actifed, when I stopped living on the Tums and kaopectate? You don't know when it changed. Like there's not a pinpoint date, but that there was a change. And I thought, wow, if a gentle movement and guided meditation could create this much change inside my body, then there must be something to Chinese medicine. So indirectly, because of the Qigong, that instructor I was training with supposedly was teaching Chen style Tai Chi, and Chen Sao Tai Chi is a martial art. It's the oldest system of Tai Chi. A lot of people, when they hear of Tai Chi, they just think it's what old people do in the park. And so what happened was, after I broke away from him, and then I found my sifu, who I'm still with today, Tony Wong, who really teaches the traditional Chen Tai Chi. I mean, we're directly connected to Chen Village in China, the Hunan province, and I started competing with Tai Chi in tournaments. I've been in Inside Kung Fu magazine a couple times, competed at the national level. I was ranked 10th in the US at one point. So I dabbled with that too. And then finally with Sanshou, with Kung Lee's fight teams, was introduced to Sanshou. Thousands of years ago, before man started to evolve and lose their spiritual centers, and paid more attention to the ego, they were enlightened enough to understand how these internal organs functioned. They were enlightened enough to understand that there are channels in the body, and that there are actually points in the body, and that these vessels and channels and these organs correlate to the seasons, and correlate to different foods that you eat, correlate to different colors. And so that is the foundation of Chinese medicine, is recognizing when the organism itself and its internal environment is not much different than the external environment. So just like there can be a discord in your external environment, weather-wise or in your personal life, that's also can happen on the inside. So when someone says to me, even if it's a disease that I've never heard of before, and they say, "Can you help me with it?" my answer is yes, because I believe that anything is possible.
Okay, so there you go. That was just a brief history of how I got to where I am today. And like I said, I can't imagine doing anything else, nor could I ever imagine all the wonderful things that have been presented to me since I found my life purpose. And we're going to talk more about your life purpose and what that looks like as we go along in this webinar. So the next thing that we have to ask ourselves is, okay, well, do you want to be a change maker? Do you want to create change in your life? At the time, I knew, going back to that video, I knew that I had to create some kind of change. Like I said in that short documentary, I knew I was going to end up dead, in prison, or both, or I knew I was going to, end up with a miserable life. So I knew I had to create some kind of change. Little did I know that how Qigong was not only going to transform my health, physically, mentally, emotionally, but also how I was going to grow spiritually, and then eventually be able to find what it is my life purpose is for which I'm doing today. And now being the change maker in the world that I've always wanted to be. So the question I have to ask you is, do you want things to change? Are there circumstances in your life that that need to change? Or maybe on the subconscious level, you think, every once in a while that little voice just kind of pops up and says, hey, you gotta make changes with your health. You have to make changes with your finances. Do you want physical or emotional wellness? How's your career going? Is there changes in career? Do you dread going into work? I know that the career that I had before doing this, when I first started as a butcher 21 years, when I was 15 and a half, at first it was a fun job, fulfilling. It paid the bills, but then as time went on, it really was not my life purpose. So I knew I needed to make a change in the career. Do you see things going on inside your home or inside your community that need to change? Or do you have even bigger vision like I do about helping to change the world and being part of the solution instead of part of the problem? And so if the answer is yes to any of these, then as we continue on in this webinar, I have an amazing offer to give to you or present to you at the very end, and to help you in that journey to create the change that you would like to see. Because what's really important about creating change in your life first starts off with understanding how disease kicks in. And if you live in the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, today we're filming from Los Angeles, California, or any big city, the chances of burnout, of experiencing burnout, are at a much higher rate than ever before. In Silicon Valley, in the San Francisco Bay Area, we especially see it because most of our clients there work in high tech and don't really realize that burnout is kicking in. I'm hearing stories of these college graduates that are these engineers that are in their mid to early 20s and already are having tremors because of the amount of stress that they're under, working these 12, 14-hour days, and just to go home and take care of the basic necessities and then restart and do the same thing again. So people ask, Chris, what is burnout? Well, burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by extreme and excessive prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed and unable to meet the constant demands of day-to-day life. As this stress continues, you begin to lose interest and motivation in things that you thought that you used to find enjoyable. And you may be on the road to burnout if you experience symptoms like every day is a bad day. You get up and you just feel this overwhelming feeling of dread, or you're not healthy, you have digestive problems, or you're not sleeping well. You're waking up at 1 to 3 a.m. in the morning because your mind is racing about all the things that you didn't do or all the things that you have to do. Caring about your work or home life seems like a total waste of energy. You're exhausted all the time. Some people even don't even want to get out of bed. This is another sign of burnout. The majority of your day is spent on either mind-numbing tasks that you think are just a waste of time, or you just feel that are way too overwhelming. And you feel like nothing that you do makes a difference or is appreciated. So if this is excessive stress is hindering you, then it feels like you're drowning in responsibilities. And guess what? When you're not aware that this burnout is creeping up on you, then all of a sudden we end up with severe illness, or we end up with chronic pain. And so what's nice is that we don't have to rely on conventional methods in order to change the burnout or to beat the burnout. There are some very simple practices that are thousands of years old and are meant here because, or still here today because we know over thousands of years of study that if something is not real or if it is fake, that it has a way of destroying itself. So these Qigong practices that are thousands of years old are simply here to be able to help you understand that you actually have the power to be able to transform the burnout in your life, or if you are feeling overwhelmed, or you're feeling unappreciated, or you're feeling that you're exhausted all the time, or you are suffering with chronic pain. You know, we're here to tell you today, I'm here to tell you today that you can transform it, you can change it, and you don't have to rely upon a pill, you don't have to rely upon surgery or making drastic changes in your life. It really starts with understanding how the 5 key healths that we're going to talk about today are responsible for your overall vitality and well-being. And what's great about this Qigong practices is that if you are in the health profession already, let's say you're a clinical psychologist, a social worker, a personal trainer, a yoga instructor, a doctor, a nurse, you know, these practices are something that you could also add to your client base or to your patient base as well too, to further assist them in their healing process. Because I don't know about you, but for myself, I don't like being sick and in pain, and I don't like seeing other people sick or in pain either. And that's why these practices are so ring so true to me. So what we're going to cover here today are the 5 keys to curing disease and chronic pain. And like I talked about in the opening of this webinar, the first one that we take for granted is our physical health. What does that look like? Traditional movements and exercises that you can do in order to balance out your internal well-being and your overall health. The second one we're going to cover is your mind and emotional health, your mental emotional health. How's that going for you? Third one is your finances. You know, money is a form of energy, and everything that we're talking about here is a form of qi. And by the way, as I go along in this webinar here today, if you at any level have no idea what qi or what energy is, just think of it when we're talking about it in terms of the body, just think about it in terms of blood or fluids, because we have a saying in Chinese medicine that the blood contains the qi and the qi moves the blood around the body. Everywhere around us is this energy, and our finances is an extension of that energy. How's your relationship health? Do you have blockages in your relationships? Are you having problems making the same repeat mistakes over and over and over again? I know for myself years ago, that was I had a lot of relationship health issues, and it all stemmed back to my upbringing and my childhood. Your career health, what is interesting about this is that your career health is actually your spiritual health. And so are you in alignment? Is what you're doing every day in alignment with your life purpose? So experiencing the results of Qigong, not only has this worked for me, my wife, and thousands of other people, but I'll give you an example. A client of ours that was on the webinar last year who suffered from heart palpitations decided, you know what, I'm going to start off by taking some of Chris's Qigong classes first. And he started taking some of the Qigong classes, noticed transformation and changes that started to happen. And then what happened was that he signed up and became a level 1 instructor after taking this webinar. It was interesting about Stephen is that he had these heart palpitations, and you know, he worked in high tech in Silicon Valley, and when you would talk to him and you'd ask him, well, you have these heart palpitations, there must be something going on emotionally inside your life that is creating these heart palpitations. I mean, poor diet also could create it as well too, but he goes, no, you know, he goes, there's not anything that I could think of. And then he goes, you know, the wife is great. He said the career is great, you know, or, you know, financially we're doing well. And then he stopped and he thought about it, and he realized, he said, you know, actually, you know, our daughter has special needs, and it takes up a lot of energy, and you know, I feel really, really bad for her and what she's suffering through. So anyway, so that's just a fine example of how we have emotions that show up in our life and suppress it because we have to still get up every day. We still have to take care of the kids. We still have to go to work. We still have to walk the dog, feed the cat, do whatever, take care of our siblings, take care of our parents. You know, whatever it is, we still have to go through our life and do things even when this emotional trauma is present. And what's great is that from taking this, after watching this webinar, it was enough to light a candle or light the spark for him to be able to take the practices seriously, because he realized that the heart palpitations was just the knock on his back door saying, hey, Stephen, you got to be careful because this heart palpitations could lead to something more. Anyways, what I'm happy to talk about now is that after taking the level 1 certification program and diving in deeper with the Qigong, understanding how these organs functions and how the emotions actually affected the human organism, he was able to actually transform his disease, and the heart palpitations stopped without any medication. So when we look at our health, our physical health, some people might think that just doing physical exercise is the only way to increase your physical health. As you saw in my documentary, I was able with Qigong to overcome a severe back injury and severe digestive and sinus problems. I thought, wow, if a simple practice or a simple movement and meditation create this much change inside my body, then there must be something to Chinese medicine. And that's when I started going to school and started studying at a deeper level Chinese medicine, because I thought, wow, these Qigong practices are so simple to do. I mean, what's great about it is that you don't need any special clothing, you don't need a special mat. All you need to do is find some quiet space and for some people, maybe that quiet space is just sitting in their car for a little bit and just doing some of these practices. Anyways, it doesn't take a lot of time. Sure, if you could do 1 hour to 2 hours a day of Qigong movement and meditative practices, of course, the more you do, the better that your health is going to be. But really, it starts off with 10 or 15 minutes a day. As I said in the beginning of this webinar, if you just start off with 10 or 15 minutes a day of doing these simple practices, you'll be surprised over time at how much change actually happens. And that's what happened with me too, is that besides my health, I mean, when I first started practicing Qigong, I didn't feel Qi. I didn't understand what Qi was. And after doing these practices for a while, what ended up happening was that I noticed that my health was improving, but also my energy and my vitality. And guess what? The trauma or drama, I guess you would say, that was going on in my life also started to subside. And I'm not one of these people that just, if you tell me something, I'm just going to believe it. I'm going to want to find out from practical application just what's happening, why you're doing what you're doing, to see how it works. I'll give you an example. Like competing with Tai Chi in tournaments, I didn't want to be one of those instructors that just talked about the fighting aspect of Tai Chi from theory, from what my Sifu said or from what a book said. I wanted to know from firsthand experience what was happening. So I can sit here and tell you today from firsthand experience that yes, what may seem like little growth when you start practicing Qigong, if you were to, let's say, do these practices for 6 months, try 6 months of doing these practices, it seems like minimal growth. At the end of the 6 months, if you were to stop and look back, you'd actually see that what appeared to be this was actually this. The growth was so subtle, but yet was so major. And it's so subtle because anything of substance happens the more simplified and subtle that it is. So yeah, so practicing Chinese medicine and incorporating these Qigong practices, understanding how the emotions and the functioning of the internal organs actually contributes and creates disease. So when we look at diseases that may arise from negative emotions, a lot of times, you know, there's a lot of people that don't even want to talk about emotions. And, you know, to be quite honest with you, emotions are a good thing. You know, emotions are what we need to as our barometer, so to speak, to help us be present in our day-to-day activities. But what a lot of people don't understand is that when we talk about our physical health, how much of our mental emotional state is actually affects our physical health. So heart disease. So the heart is affected by the negative emotions of abandonment, loneliness, lack of joy in your life, overexcitation, mania, and according to the World Health Organization, 7.4 million people. And you'd figure in today's, you know, it's now 2019, you'd figure that in today's time and day and age that we would have less cases of heart disease. And no, we're having more, some better scientific breakthroughs as far as fixing heart-related illnesses, but still the heart disease is still on the rise, so 7.4 million people. Diabetes and cancer, well, the organ that causes or contributes to diabetes and cancer, believe it or not, is your spleen and your pancreas. And the negative emotions that attack the spleen are the emotions of demand for nurturing, anxiety, worrying. If you're somebody that's under-nurtured because you're nurturing somebody else, over-intellectualizing things too much, thinking about things too much, all these things will weaken your stomach, your spleen, and your pancreas. And this number also, 1.5 million people die annually. This number is increasing as well. Lung diseases, the negative emotions that attack the lungs. So these see what's happening here is that over thousands of years of study on the human organism, they realized that different emotions attacked different major organs of the body and contributed to disease. So lung diseases, the negative emotion is sadness, grief, sorrow, disappointment, loss, not trusting others. These types of emotions also will create diseases, lung diseases, in 3.1 million people. Here's another one, nephritis, which is kidney disease. And this is interesting to me because kidney disease seems to be on a rise as well too. And with this one, it's not only the shock and the trauma, burning the candles at both ends, but it also has to do a lot with the food, the processed food and the GMOs that a lot of us are being forced to eat. The negative emotions, though, emotionally, though, weaken the kidneys are fear, fright, and shock, PTSD. We're hearing more and more about these vets that are coming back because the mental health institution doesn't know how to handle these young men and women that are coming back that have defended our country and be able to really give them tools to be able to process what it is that they experience. And as a result of that, we're seeing more and more violent crimes happen as they try to get readjusted back to society and can't, because the VA unfortunately doesn't seem to have the right mechanisms in place, nor does the government seem to have the right mechanisms in place to take care of these men and women who served our country. So PTSD, fright, shock, these things create all kinds of kidney diseases. And I don't know about you, but I know, especially in Silicon Valley, I'm seeing more and more dialysis companies show up in the Bay Area. And so why is that? Why are more and more dialysis offices opening up? And the reason why is the burning the candles at both ends, like I said, the PTSD that we have in our life the poor diet. And in this number, 2.5 million people, this number is growing too. Stroke, which affects your liver and your gallbladder. A lot of people don't realize this, but your liver actually controls your eyes. And if you ever heard that saying that I was so mad that I saw red, it's really the truth. It's actually the blood rising from the liver and actually penetrating into the vessels of the eyes. That's why the person sees red. Anyways, the emotions, and this is a big emotion for most of us, is anger, frustration, resentment, and hatred. Old anger, all these things actually affect your liver and your gallbladder and create all kinds of health problems, from vertigo to sleep problems to digestive problems to menstrual problems to migraines. I mean, neurological issues, facial neuralgia. I mean, I could keep on going. Tendon issues. You know, there's floaters in the eyes. These are all stem from this emotion. And yes, if you have a poor diet, not eating the right foods or eating too many greasy, fatty, fried foods, processed foods, then this also will contribute to having a stroke as well, but also the emotions of holding on to anger. And you know, the other thing too, is interesting about repressed anger is that when it's held on to for a long period of time, it actually turns into depression. So the patient comes into clinic, we don't treat the mind like they do in science. What we do is we go after the liver, which then affects the heart, which then affects the mind. So 6.7 million people die annually, and that number is also increasing. I'm seeing younger and younger people that are dying of strokes and aneurysms as a result of the amount of stress and frustration in their life. So, you know, you might be thinking to yourself, well, how can a simple movement or meditation help me out physically? And, you know, I'll be honest with you, your physical health is based upon the proper functioning of the internal organs. If these organs are not functioning ultimately at their greatest capacity, then it starts to show up as disease. And it's not just things like, oh, upset stomach, constipation. You know, what's interesting is that there's so many people out there that live with things like constipation or sinus issues or stomach distension. And, you know, they go in and they have, you know, an upper GI, lower GI, they have all these tests done. They can't seem to find anything, but they don't really realize how the emotional component will create discords in the organs, which then show up as physical ailments. So we always see this. I'll see a personal trainer, for example, who is physically fit, who is doing what they're supposed to be doing, or what we're taught that we're supposed to be doing, which is eating right, exercising, and then having proper amount of sleep, but they're still dying of certain diseases. And I'm just going to use an example. I had this another student who joined the webinar about a year ago, and her name was Lynn, and Lynn actually was a personal trainer and was in great physical shape. And when she first came in, she came in for a lower lumbar, lower sciatic issue. And on the initial intake, because one of the ways that I could assess or diagnose, besides taking the pulse and the tongue, is I could look at a person's face to see what's going on emotionally inside their body or see potential diseases. Anyways, as I was doing her intake with her, I told her, I said, well, okay, we'll go ahead and work on your back, but I'm just letting you know that you have to deal with the emotions that you have towards men. She goes, oh, I dealt with that stuff years ago. So, all right, as I continued to type her soap notes, and we fixed her back, which back conditions actually are really easy to fix. And she would periodically come in if she had some kind of shoulder problem, neck problem, or cold or flu. And then one day, something she said, she came in, something she said, something I saw on her tongue, something I saw on her face. I told her, I said, I need you to make an appointment with your primary. I want your carotid arteries tested in your neck. She goes, you're crazy. She goes, look at me. She goes, I'm physically fit. I work out every day, 1 to 2 hours. I eat healthy. There's nothing wrong with me. And I said, well, it's up to you what you do with it, but this is what I'm seeing. Luckily for both of us, she decided to take my advice. She went in, saw her primary, and 2 weeks later, she was in my office and in the clinic lobby, and she was in tears. And I said, what's going on with you? She goes, well, I just want to thank you for saving my life. I went in and they did the test, and both my carotid arteries are 70% blocked. So there we go. When we're looking at physical health, if she's physically exercising right, if she's eating right, what was the one component that she was ignoring or pretending like didn't exist in her life, which was her mental emotional state, which in this case happened to be this resentment towards men. And as you saw in that last slide I showed you about strokes, being caused by resentment, old anger, and frustration. This was something she was choosing not to acknowledge. But luckily for us, she watched the webinar. She saw the value in this for herself, wanted to change this without medication. So her and her doctor, her primary, and myself, we worked together. He didn't put on any medication. She watched the webinar. She signed up for our level 1 and level 2 teacher training program. And a year later, just this past year, she actually came in, and guess what? She went back in for the test, and her carotid arteries are clear. And that's not magic. That's just understanding, once again, how our physical health is affected by what's going on with the functioning of our internal organs. So the last thing here I just want to mention about your physical health is that, you know, the reality is that your body wants to be healthy. In fact, the DNA, science is now proving that the DNA, most of the DNA strands are healthy in the helix itself. So let's say if you are born into a family, because I hear this a lot. Well, I was born into a family with hypertension. I was born into a family with diabetes. I was born into a family with migraines. The DNA or the science is now showing that you don't have to get the disease. Most of the DNA strand itself, that helix, the strand itself, most of that strand is actually healthy. There may be strands that show the hereditary value or potential for these specific diseases, but science is now proving that if you change your environment, if you change your diet, if you change how you respond to stimuli inside your, or emotional trauma and stimuli within your environment, then guess what? You actually will change that process of disease, and actually the helix itself, or the whole DNA strand, actually will be healthier. And I'm just going to give you an example. Phil Jackson was the basketball coach for the Chicago Bulls and the Lakers, and he is one of the most winningest coaches in all of sports. So when we also talk about our physical health, what's the cool thing about Qigong too is that Qigong is actually sports enhancing. And so Phil Jackson actually proved this with his players. You know, the Phil Jackson is still today one of the most winningest coaches of all, or is the most winningest coach of all professional sports. 11 rings, 11 titles or championships to his credit. And the great thing that Phil Jackson did was that he would have his players do mindfulness meditations, in particular Buddhist style meditations. He would have them lay on the basketball court and visualize how they felt before the game, during the game, and after the game, and how they were going to perform. And guess what? They would actually perform better than the other teams that they were competing against. And the proof's in the pudding. I mean, 11 rings is 11 rings. So when we look at physical health too, we're also looking at sports performance. So let's say if you are a basketball player, let's say if you are a swimmer, a golfer, a professional fighter or amateur fighter, it does not matter because these only help to enhance everything it is that you are doing already. So when you are at the gym every day working out, if you're doing double days or whatever, in between those double days, or maybe in the morning before you start those double days, then you go ahead and start doing these practices, and you will only enhance and build upon what it is that you're trying to become, whatever, and depending on whatever that sport is, whatever champion that you're trying to be. These practices also help to transform and improve your overall performance. So the second one here, going back to our minds and our mind and our emotions, you know, these guided meditations actually help to reduce stress and increase your mental clarity and your vitality. And your mind and emotional health is of utmost importance, because if you be mindful and present in the present moment, then emotionally you won't be affected by external situations. Most of the time, our knee-jerk reaction, our reactions that we have, are based upon things that happened to us in the past. In fact, I have a saying. I believe in quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and I believe in that. If you've seen the movie The Secret, or What the Bleep Do We Know About This World? So for years, one of the things that I do is I talk to myself in the mirror every single morning, and I co-create with God whatever it is that I want to manifest. And knowing this about myself, I used to really come from a place of reaction. What I say to myself, one of the things I say to myself in the mirror is that I choose to come from a place of conscious action and non-reaction. conscious action and non-reaction. And what does that mean? That means I'm consciously present. So if I know that I'm going into a situation that may be stressful, or if I'm going to be around certain people that would get my goat, so to speak, instead of what my mind used to do or what my ego would used to do would think of all the counterattacks or the counter situations that I build myself up. And I think most of us do this. So instead of doing that, what I do is, instead of trying to my ego trying to build me up for the what ifs, which was really exhausting, I'd actually change it. And I actually did change it by saying I choose to come from a place of conscious action and non-reaction. And so when you do that, you are present, you're not living from the past, and you're living in the present moment. And this is what creates the clarity that you need in order to have a healthy, balanced life. So the great thing about Qigong is that it helps to connect the heart-mind or body, heart-mind-body connection. How many of us have heard about this? You know, for years, science thought that that our consciousness was in the frontal cortex of our brain. And now science is proving that no, that actually if you give somebody, if you really pay attention, the consciousness is here. And there's a group of scientists in Santa Cruz Mountains called HeartMath, and what they're doing studies is showing that the electromagnetic signals that come from the heart, especially in certain situations, like if you were to give somebody a sincere hug, they're actually now showing that when people give each other a sincere hug, the hearts actually of both individuals actually move a little bit closer together. And when we find things that helps to fill our bucket, and a little bit here we're going to be talking about our career health and our spiritual health, when we're able to look inward and find things to help fill our spiritual buckets, then what happens is that our minds are much clearer. And they actually have a saying in Chinese philosophy that the heart houses the mind, which houses the Shen. Now your Shen is your spirit, and you can normally tell the state of somebody's Shen by how bright their eyes are. So if somebody has a very dull complexion in their eyes, or there seems to be very dry, then what ends up happening is that ends up being a reflection of a blockage here in the heart. So it means that the mind has no place to reside. And another thing about the mind and the brain is the actual physical location where the different components of the body are controlled through our nervous system, but nowhere inside the brain is your mind. In fact, science can't locate it. So when we look at our emotional health and this heart-mind connection, it really starts from here. This here is just the reflection. So when you look at emotional health, and going back to the one slide when we were talking about physical health, one of the things that we don't realize is that when a person comes in with certain emotions, let's say you are somebody that over-intellectualizes too much. Let's say you are somebody who overthinks things too much. Well, it could be one of those things, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the poor diet create the spleen imbalance, which then create the mind to run out of control? Or did the excessive worry actually create the spleen imbalance for the mind to race out of control? And so when we look at our emotional health, again, emotions are healthy. I'll give you an example, like the emotion of anger is a positive emotion. It's a positive emotion if it allows you to create change in the world, to stand up to fight for the underdog, allow for you to get out of a bad situation, or to do something creative and expressive, then that anger is actually a good thing. But if anger is causing you not to sleep well, causing you to have digestive problems, or causing you to have migraines or depression or road rage, or you're going home and you're snapping at the kids or at your spouse, drinking too much or trying to use some other substance in order to compensate for how you're feeling, then that anger is no longer serving you. So this is the balance of utilizing the emotions appropriately and expressing them appropriately and not repressing them as well too. And I'll give you an example of how emotions show up. You know, we had about 6 months ago, we had a student who came in for a free Tai Chi class because we were contracted with the San Francisco Bay Wildlife Society. And you know, when I'm contracted to give these free Tai Chi classes, I can't teach Tai Chi to a new group of people once a month for 1 hour. It's just impossible to do. So what I did was I incorporated aspects of Tai Chi called silk reading, but also these Qigong practices. And one of the gals that came in, she had RA, and then was in severe physical pain and weakness. And after the one class, thought or saw just the benefit that it increased vitality and less pain. So she was on a webinar like what you guys are now, and she signed up and took the level 1 and the level 2 teacher training program that we have. And her illness, she's gaining control over her illness. In fact, I'm so excited because she actually will be teaching for us later on this month, once again for the San Francisco Bay Wildlife Society, and also starting to teach on her own for a support group for other people who suffer from RA, and this being one of the main mechanisms that she utilized in order to help to transform her disease. Okay, so the truth about relaxation is that our minds are much more powerful than what most people realize. And once you start doing these meditations, you know, we have a saying that the imagination leads the mind and the mind leads a smooth flow of the chi. And what we don't realize is that when we think about something, the whole saying is what you think about, you bring about, is really the truth. I mean, how many times have you or somebody else have had the situation come up where you thought about somebody you haven't seen in a long period of time, and then the next thing you know, that person calls you, or they text you, or you run into them at a store, or you run into them at the mall somewhere. It's not by accident, because what's happened is that you put it out there to the universe. So if you think about that, or pause a moment, just think about that, and then you start to think about doing these practices using mind intent while you're doing the practices, then you start to understand how these simple practices have such profound results. So the third key here is our financial health, or I'm sorry, is our relationship health. And how many of us have had poor relationships or poor boundaries with people? You know, I joke around, but it's really the truth. You know, they really should have a class in elementary school or in middle school about proper boundaries. Because boy, if I would have learned proper boundaries as a kid, the chances of me having the dysfunctional relationships that I had would not probably have happened. So when we have dysfunctional relationships, this is also a health issue as well too, because they create emotional problems, they create spiritual problems for us, they create physical problems for us. And if we keep on repeating the same pattern over and over and over again, then that actually shows up as diseases. Okay, so for me, what happened was that like I said in the very beginning here, I had a lot of dysfunctional relationships, which for years, you know, as I said in the beginning of this webinar, you know, I had two prior marriages and a lot of dysfunctional relationships in between those two marriages. And after the second marriage and another dysfunctional relationship after that, she was actually what we call my Saturn returns, because I knew her for 12 years. I realized, I thought to myself, man, I'm drawing in all these crazy people, but in reality, it was more about the craziness of myself. So that's when I dove in deeper with the Qigong. I started doing other practices like NLP and such, and I really focused on getting to the root of where were these energetic blockages and where did they come from? Because I was tired of making the same mistakes over and over and over again and having the misery of these dysfunctional relationships. And I heard somebody say one time, well, having a hard relationship with your spouse is actually really good for you to help you grow. And I mean, on some level, yeah, but I could tell you right now, after cultivating myself, after transforming these issues that I had, which came from childhood, I was able to find the love of my life. Here you see in this slide here, Parisa. And that would not have happened if I didn't start to transform some of these blockages and where they came from. And sure, do her and I have problems? Yes. But it's not a day in and day out battle like it was in all my other relationships. And I didn't live, I'm not living in misery like I was before, because I chose to dive in to figure out what it was that was creating my blockages. So the truth about relationships is that when you cultivate your life essence, you actually gain inner peace and understanding, and then you attract people of your own vibration. All right, so your external environment is a mirror of what's going on inside of you. So if you're crazy on the inside here, if your mind is all over the place, you know, Eckhart Tolle says it the best. He said, you know, a lot of people will look at homeless people, whatever, on the street that obviously have some mental issues, and hear them talking to themselves and think, man, that person is really crazy. But what I liked about what Eckhart Tolle said is that if you were to walk down the street and if you could hear inside the minds or inside the heads of, or listen inside the heads of most of the people that are around you and the rhetoric that they're saying to themselves, they would be deemed just as crazy. So the reality is that your internal environment and your external environment are connected. And what's going on the inside is going to show up on the outside. So if you're not balanced, and this is from my own experience, I wasn't balanced on the inside, therefore the relationship, the vibrational pattern of the women I was drawing in my life were of that same vibration. So they were of the same dysfunction. And so once I realized that, oh wow, then I was able to transform that. Then guess what? All my relationships, including friendships, including having proper boundaries with family, and that's the other thing too, is that people have these really unhealthy relationships with their family members, fathers, mothers, you know, the codependencies, and brother or siblings, and they treat them a certain way, and they say, well, you have to deal with it just because we're family. And I'm here to say, no, you do not. You could divorce family just like you could divorce a spouse that you're not getting along with. You don't have to deal with that. And once you realize that it's so important for what's going on in the shrine of your body here to have proper boundaries with people, that only comes about by you really loving yourself and really working on the imbalances that are show up inside your life. So this fourth one here is your financial health, and you know, example of money is a form of energy currency. Now I know that there's people out there that say that money does not exist, it's not real, but unfortunately in this day and age still, you know, if I go to the gas station, I still have to pay by cash or ATM card to fill up my tank of gas. So there still is an energy exchange. And when you work with other people as well too, there is an energy exchange as well. You have to pay people in order to get services because there has to be something that happens. But your mindset about money or surrounding money is really goes back to your internal wellness as well. So if you're the kind of person that if you're the kind of person that, you know, thinks, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or money's hard to come by, then I'm here to tell you that those self-limiting beliefs, which by the way, 9 times out of 10, like if you come from the type of family that I came from, those were common phrases that I heard growing up. We struggled financially. My family struggled. You know, my dad would go on strike. They would fight always about money when they were married, and so a lot of those self-limiting beliefs actually showed up. But what I didn't realize is that as I started doing these Qigong practices, I wasn't planning on it, but I actually developed a career for myself. You know, when I was in high school, even though I was doing a lot of drugs and there wasn't too many days to where I was sober, I was still very driven. So I did my AP studies in art. Like I said, at age 15 and a half, I got hired on and with a major grocery chain, and I started my process of my apprenticeship as a fish clerk, then finally as a butcher. Also, I was going to school part-time. Like I go to high school half the day, the other half the day I was going to adult educational course where I got my California Class A state brake license, my license for overhauling engines, cylinder head reconditioning, tuned by electrical systems. So I had these 3 careers. You know, I figured, well, if I don't make it as a butcher, then I'll be a freelance artist, or maybe I'll go to work for George Lucas as an industrial light and sound or whatever. Or if I didn't make it as an artist, then I'll be a mechanic. Nowhere on my radar did I think in Qigong instructor, Tai Chi instructor, healer. That was not even the closest thing on my radar. But you know, I'm not the only one. You know, we have another young woman who finished the level 1 and level 2 Qigong Teacher Training, and the career that she has, she's a single mom, taking care of her 2 beautiful young kids, and the career she has pays the bills, you know. But what she realizes is that it didn't really fill up her life purpose. And we're going to talk about life purpose here in a little bit, but but for her now, what's happening is that she's seeing like the value of what happened, of how it changed her life, of how by doing the after watching the webinar and applying these practices and signing up for the level 1, and then completing level 1, graduating from that, and then moving on to the level 2. She's now looking at this as a career change to give her something that gives her more purpose. But even as she's building that up, she's still maintaining her regular day job, but then increasing her income by going out and teaching these other classes. Sometimes for us, sometimes now she's out there teaching for herself. So she's making an extra income because there's more and more people out there that want to learn this stuff. And here, at least here in California, at least in the San Francisco Bay Area, we see more and more yoga studios, for example, that actually want to have Qigong or actually have Qigong as a class or as a service to offer to their customers, because they see the value of it. And actually Qigong incorporates very well with yoga. So, you know, the truth about your income is that if you change and dissolve the blockages inside you, then this allows for the finances just to flow through you and to you. And perseverance and persistence doesn't mean you have to kill yourself. And if you are somebody which had the thought process like, oh, or heard the things from your parents like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or people with lots of money are bad people, I'm here to tell you right now that no, change your perception on your thoughts around money. It is a form of energy. Once again, it goes back to your insides, what's going on the inside for you, of how you think about money and what kind of experiences have you had around it. So if you're having a struggle and you have a hard time building up enough resources for your abundancy, because everybody's level of abundancy is different. Some people's abundancy is having the simple little house, 1-bedroom little house. Some people's abundancy is having mansions all over the world. You know, who cares? Everybody's abundancy is different. So how you view your finances actually goes back energetically to what's going on in here, and then what has been taught to you throughout the years, or what society has imposed on you over the years. So when we look at our income and what we need to survive and what is our comfort level, look at how we view it. And one of the ways to dissolve that is actually by doing these practices to help to gain balance and harmony inside the body to create change that you need. Now this one here, this one's probably my favorite one, which is your career health or your spiritual health. And as I said, it was never on my radar that I would become this master healer. And you know, I get to do such great things. Like I was on tour a little bit at the end of the summer with Def Leppard and Journey, flying around with them, working with the band as they had some health or, you know, pain or whatever going on. And, you know, I have to kind of sit back and pinch myself. I get to do things and see things that, you know, if I was still doing the 9-to-5 job, though being a butcher was definitely not a 9-to-5 job. That job had no schedule whatsoever, no consistent schedule whatsoever, or no consistent days off whatsoever. But I'm doing things now that I never thought in a million years I'd ever be able to do. Now I'm here in both in Northern California and in Los Angeles, California, pursuing now my next stage of the career, which is our own TV show, and to help to spread the knowledge and the wisdom to the world, and to show people that you don't have to live with disease or illness, that you transform it. And you know, the reality is that if you're able to align with your life purpose, if you're able to find your life purpose, then this is the true abundancy of life. And Dr. Mao Xingyi here in Los Angeles is Yosan University, which is a major acupuncture college here. They also have the Dao Wellness Center in Santa Monica. And we are at a lecture with Dr. Mao Xingyi, and Dr. Mao had made a comment. We were doing this workshop actually on career health, and there's probably about 60 people in the class, and Dr. Mao had asked the class a show of hands of how many people enjoy what it is that they're doing for a living. And there's probably only about 3 to 4 of us that rose our hands. Wow, that's pretty sad. That means that the majority of the class regardless of what their career is not enjoying what it is that they're doing. So Dr. Mao actually made a comment or a statement. He said, you know, before you come into this life form on this planet, you sign a contract with heaven that you are to find your life purpose. And because when you find your life purpose, this is how heaven expresses itself through you. I thought, wow, that's such a great statement. Because what you may be thinking too is that, well, I don't know, maybe I'm brand new to Qigong, and I don't know, what do I want to teach? Or maybe am I just doing this practice for myself? Do I want to learn more about myself and be able to help myself and maybe my children, my family members? Maybe I don't want to be a teacher, but maybe this might be your life purpose and you don't know it yet. Maybe like for myself, for example, this was not even on my radar. I've always been interested in medicine. Like I said in the short video at the very beginning of this webinar, my mom was a nurse, and I used to enjoy reading her nursing magazines. And because I always been interested in art, you know, where other kids in elementary school, for example, would be writing book reports on the Pueblo Indians, you know, I'd be writing book reports on blood plasma and hematomas, and I'd be drawing out the pictures of the cells and everything else, utilizing my art. But so I've always been interested in medicine, but this was the furthest thing from my radar as far as a career goes. So you know, in building a career, this is actually a funny picture of me. I got to think our editor Shannon, she put this one together. But yeah, when we think about our career, you know, there was last summer we were coming down to Los Angeles, and my wife's Prius got a flat tire, and if most of you have a Prius, you know that it doesn't come with a spare tire. I didn't know it at the time, I didn't check. But anyways, we got a flat tire, had to get a tow truck driver to come out and pick us up. And this young guy, about 25 years old, fresh out of the Marines, you know, we're talking, and this guy loved being a tow truck driver. He says, you know what? He goes, I have a GI Bill. I could always go back to school and become that doctor, become that lawyer, whatever it is, that engineer, you know, but I've always dreamt of being a tow truck driver. And you could see and feel from just sitting next to him that he loved his job. He found his life purpose. So when we look at our life purpose, it could be anything for anybody. You could be the janitor. You could be the highly paid lawyer. As long as you are fulfilled in what you're doing and you feel like you are honestly serving society as a whole, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be the house cleaner. You could be the butcher who spiritually finds peace and purpose through being the butcher. For myself, I wanted more, but it doesn't mean that somebody else can be a butcher and be totally content. So, but also one last thing here before I move on is that just because you have a lot of money, going back to our last slides on finances, doesn't necessarily mean that you have your life purpose. I have some clients that are the top 1% in the country, and a couple of those clients actually had no life purpose. Yeah, they have the money. Their financial people tell you, you know, your main issue is going to be being able to spend all the money that you have. So here they have all the money, but they don't have the life purpose. And it was great about another product that I offer, which is based upon the 5-element coaching. We do these coaching calls via Zoom or live in person, and I'm just going to use Steve, for example. You know, Steve was somebody that is one of those top 1%, had no life purpose. And guess what? It took us about 6 months, but now he's discovered his life purpose and is actually doing it now. So now not only does he get to enjoy the financial freedom that most of us want to have, but he's also finally discovered what it is and the reason why he's here on this planet, or what his contribution actually is here on this planet. So let me ask you a question. Are you enjoying the webinar so far? Well, I enjoy the fact and the opportunity to be able to present to you, because for some people, a lot of people don't realize that there are these 5 components to health and what that looks like. And to some people, like here in SoCal, there's a lot of people still to this day that don't even know what Qigong is. But we have a saying that Qigong is the new yoga, even though it's older than yoga. So the question I'd ask yourself, are you looking, we just celebrated New Year's a few days ago, are you looking to kick off the new year in the right direction? Are you feeling tired of being in pain? Are you tired of being tired? Are you tired of being sick and tired? Do you want more energy? Do you want increased vitality? I mean, these are some very simple questions to ask yourself, because the reality is that if you want these kinds of changes, then we have to look at these 5 healths. And once again, just to summarize it here, it's our physical health. What does that look like? And as I talked about, as we talked about the physical health, also being sports enhancing, and also looking at how these internal organs function to make sure that our physical bodies are functioning properly. What is our mental emotional health? How is our finances? How do we view money? How are our relationships? Do we have healthy relationships or are our relationships unhealthy? Do we find that we keep on meeting the same people? We keep on coming into our life and creating discord in our life. And then last but not least, what is our career health? What is our spiritual health? You know, what is your life purpose? Are you living your life purpose? Do you feel fulfilled in here? And those are some of the main things to ask yourself. And what's great about Qigong is it gives you tools to deal with stress and be able to fight and combat the process of disease. So who wants to take it to the next level? Are you the person that wants to go and say, yes, you know what, Chris, I want to go to the next level. I'm tired of the mundane things, the day-to-day things. I'm feeling burnt out. Going back to that slide in the very beginning of the webinar, some of those symptoms that you talked about of burnout, I'm actually experiencing that. So who wants to see change in their life? Who wants to improve the consciousness of the planet? I mean, you know, for myself, this is the driving force for me. I want to see the changes. I feel that for myself that I'm a people person. I'm a person of the people, which means that I feel that all people are included, that nobody is exempt. And that's one of the cool things that I love about Qigong, is because it does not segregate against age, religious background, gender, ethnic background, does not matter. And even like I tell people, even if you are a paraplegic and you are stuck in a wheelchair, you can still do these practices to still enhance your overall well-being. And one of the great things that I get to do, as well as Pri says, that we're clinical directors for the Special Olympics for a program called Healthy Athletes, Strong Minds. And this is where we go in as clinical directors for California to the games and give these Qigong practices to the athletes, families, and their coaches. But for the athletes, not only to deal with the stress of competition, but more importantly, what do you do with the energy if somebody's bullying you? What do you do if you live in a home with other people with intellectual disabilities and you get into an argument with somebody? What do you do with that energy? And that's where these practices come in. So if you're somebody that wants to create change on all levels, maybe it has to start off with you first. Then this is something that's great for you, because it all starts with you. And the nice thing about this level 1 Qigong teacher training course is that you will experience overall enhanced well-being, improved health. You'll feel the increased joy and presence in your life. You'll be able to help others, because that's the cool thing too, is that as you learn this stuff, then you can go ahead and share it with your friends and your colleagues. You know, there are people like my one client, Sue, who after doing the level 1 and level 2 program actually went out and started teaching for their high-tech company, because she saw the value in how it changed herself, how it changed her mood, how it changed her perception of her job, and started up a class, a 30-minute class every day at her high-tech job in order to spread the love. For those of you that want your dream job like I have, to be able to travel the world, to be able to help influence other people. Maybe you don't want to travel the world. Maybe all you want to do is just to help to influence the people in your community. That's fantastic, because that's where it all starts. You know, if you have patients, celebrate the wins with those patients as you give them extra tools. You know, and the thing about the Strong Minds program, you know, we're in with a lot of people that are clinical psychologists, clinical psychiatrists. So these are practices that they are able to utilize as well too, in order to better help their patients. And so if you are a personal trainer, if you are a yoga instructor, if you are a clinical social worker, you know, once again, this is just something that you could go ahead and do to further help enhance the profound effect that you already have upon them. So here we'd like to introduce our Qigong Teacher Training Program, and it's the most complete and profound online teacher training program system out there. We're not just going to teach you the gentle movements and meditations, because it feels good. We want you to know, and I want you to know, what is going on internally to help you cure chronic pain and fight off disease. So if you're somebody that says, wow, all the things that you're talking about, or at least some of the things you're talking about, Chris, are in alignment with my belief structure, I know I need to create change in my life, then this is the Qigong Teacher Training Program for you. You know, we get to learn about, in the program, how to apply and utilize these practices to increase the 5 healths and to be the change maker that this world needs. Sign up today, or sign up this week, and what you're going to receive is support from myself and Prisa through email, the forum. There is an online forum, so even though this is an online, level 1 is an online program, there is a live forum to where other participants, and we already have participants signed up, and this forum, each week what will happen is that besides the videos that will be downloaded to you, there will be also some other materials downloaded, but you have access to a forum. And one of the things that we have Peace Pep Talks, where Prisa will ask you a question to post on the forum and pertaining to the practice of that week. So you'll be a part of a community of other people, of other healers, of other change makers that want to improve their well-being. So you'll have access to them. You have access to me and Prisa through text, voice, telephone, or email. So it's not like, even though it's an online program, yes, obviously having things in person all the time is the best way to do things, but the reality is that we want people to feel like they are still in touch. Also, there's 3 webinars, 3 live webinars through the 13 weeks where we get together with the whole community so you can see everybody else that's in your community and be able to post or present me with questions. I will talk about the practices that we had covered up to that particular stage. And what's nice is that this foundational Qigong practice will enhance your personal well-being, and there's really no price you can put on that. There's really no price. You know, I have clients that live paycheck to paycheck, and they come to me and they say, you know what, Chris, the reality is that I don't make that much money, but coming here, doing this is something that gives back to my health, and I could have all the money in the world, but if I'm dying and suffering, or dying not living a fulfilled life, then who cares having that money, or saving that money, or spending that money in other areas. I'd rather spend money on myself to enhance myself, because your vibration actually ripples out and creates the vibration that we see in the rest of the planet. So if you want to create the change for the world, it really starts with you. And for those of you that want to become a teacher, or you want to add, once again, this to your clinical practice, I mean, this is of limitless value. I mean, the knowledge and the wisdom here that we're passing down, that I'm passing down to you, because it wasn't mine to begin with. I'm just passing along in a different format to help you understand it at a clearer, more concise way of how these kinds of things, or how these types of practices actually help you to improve your life and your well-being. So sign up today. Our next level 1 launches Monday, January 29th, 2019. Now, normally the price for this program is $2,000, $19.99. We dropped it down to $1,500, but because of the new year, and the new year becomes the new you, if you give us one payment, instead of saving $450, give us one payment of $1,099, then you're going to save a whopping $851 today. If you're somebody who says, you know, Chris, you know, this is the first of the year, I just got through Christmas, and what you're talking about here makes sense to me. I want to sign up, but I can't afford the $10.99 right up front. Then you can make 3 monthly payments of not $600, but of $500, and have a total savings of $450. And if you save, and besides that, besides these big savings, and once again, this goes back to ultimately into giving back to yourself. If you sign up within the next 48 hours, then what I'm offering to you too is a is a coaching call with me, or if you live in LA or in the Silicon Valley area, live in person, 1 hour, come to me with all your questions, health questions, career questions, relationship questions, financial questions, mental, emotional questions. Come to me with a list of your questions, or let's say you're planning on starting a business as a healer or an instructor. I'm offering to you a one-time coaching session with me, which is a $295 value for the 50 minutes, and to once again to further help you understand and fully grasp everything that you'll be learning in the program, and for you to get the most out of the program. My ultimate thing is making sure that all the students that come through the Qigong Teacher Training program aren't just out there trying to once again teach this stuff or apply it to their life just because it feels good. I really want everybody out there to understand how and why this works. And so how I teach it is based upon the very, very, very basic foundations of classical Chinese medicine, and just to help you understand how these organs function and how it's all connected to everything else around you, and how by doing a simple movement or meditation, how it can create so much change inside your life. So here we have Kari, who's been a long-time acupuncturist with us at Morning Crane in San Jose, California. She actually came on with us, and when she first came on with us, you know, because of the doctor's office that she was at before, there's a lot of resistance and I guess you would say some rigidness surrounding her. But over the years, what happened was she ended up doing the level 1 and level 2, and her energy, her health, oh my gosh, it's changed so much. And as a practitioner, what she's done is she's gone ahead and she's added these practices to her client base. So as she does the acupuncture, she also gives these Qigong practices to her clients to further enhance what it is that she's already doing. And so ultimately this practice works great for all wellness professionals. And Qigong is really finally, after all these years, is finally on the rise and getting the momentum and the notoriety that it deserves. So I'm going to ask you one more time, do you want to be a change maker? Do you want to see change in your life? Do you want to create change in the world? Do you want to see change in your community? And once again, if you answered yes to anything, or if you nodded yes, like I understand what he's saying, or I've been through that, or you know, I know somebody who's gone through that, then this Qigong Teacher Training program is for you. Please don't miss the opportunity. Take advantage. One-time payment, 1099, or break up the payments into three sections, and take advantage of the opportunity to give back to yourself. Because ultimately, in order to be a change maker, it really just starts with you. Taking the time, invest in yourself, and then you see and reap the rewards. And this, once again, has a ripple out effect that touches your community, your family, and even spreads vibrationally around the world. So I'm Chris Shelton. Thank you once again from Prisa and the Morning Crane team. I wish you well and look forward to seeing you January 29th, 2019. Until then, I will chi you later.